Hey church family, this is my weekly update video, and today this is a very special video because it's actually launching a whole series of videos that we're going to be releasing over the next couple of days around mental health awareness. If you've been watching the news or reading the newspapers, you'll be aware that there is a huge concern that as this pandemic kind of rolls on, there's an increasing level of mental trauma that people are facing in our society. And so we just wanted to do our small part in trying to open up this subject for us as a church family. Now, the first thing to say is that I'm not a medical professional. The people who will be sharing on these videos in the large part aren't medical professionals, but what we are people who have some personal experience of mental illness. And we want to try and open this subject up for us as a church so that it doesn't become a taboo subject or a subject that is just never really engaged with because of maybe fear or anxiety. And one of my observations is that often as Christians, we can not really know how to engage with the subject of mental illness. Numbers of people that I've spoken to feel a level of shame because of mental illness, as if somehow, if only they'd have had greater levels of faith, then they wouldn't have been experiencing what they're experiencing. Friends, we want to undo some of these lies and show how mental illness is a trauma that many people in our society are facing. And yes, we believe in a God who restores, but we also believe in a God who walks through the valleys with us. And so we want to try and open up the subject of mental illness so that you and I are able to, as it were, try and at least have a taste of what it's like to be in somebody else's skin and what it's like to face the mental illness or challenges that they face, so that we can be a caring community. Because here's an important thing for us to grasp. When you talk to medical professionals about people who are suffering with mental illness, one of the things that they are constantly encouraging them to do is to find a community, a place where they belong with other people who can be a support network around us. Friends, the church is that ready-made support network. And so I want us to encourage us to learn and listen and be attentive and have our hearts open to people who are going to be facing mental illness and trauma through these days, so that together as a church we can be a place of care and safety, a place of tranquility for people whose inner worlds may well be in trauma. So 2 years ago, many of you will know that I was signed off work. I was signed off work for about 3 months. And really through those 3 months, I experienced what many people call burnout syndrome, symptoms of burnout from overworking, prolonged overworking, and it felt very much like I'd just run into a brick wall. And suddenly all of my internal stability disappeared. I felt like I was in free fall, and it was a really, really scary place to be. I couldn't get hold of my emotions. They were all over the place. One moment I was feeling very normal. The next moment I had very high levels of anxiety. I had significant mood shifts. I had moments where I was feeling quite suicidal. And all of this happened in a very rapid period of time. Friends, I was experiencing mental illness. And I share this story because I want you to understand that mental illness is something that any of us can experience in different seasons of our life. And I remember sitting with Lorna in the GP's surgery, thinking about going in to speak to the GP about all of this kind of inner turmoil and craziness that I was experiencing on the inside. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to take every bit of medicine which I would have given out to people in the church if they'd have come and spoken to me. And what I mean by that is, I want to take every piece of advice that I would have given to other people. And so that advice that I would have given to other people is seek out the best support team that you can find. And for me, going through this season of trauma that I went through, ultimately, that best support team was multifaceted. It was the GP. I had a brilliant GP who sat and listened, who learnt about the kind of complexities of what it means to be a church leader. He really helped me to navigate this scary and traumatic season of my life. I also went and saw a counsellor for about 6 months, and the counsellor was amazing in helping me to identify and then deal with a number of unresolved issues in my life. I don't think I would have spotted them or been able to address them without the help of this counsellor. I also had a great team of friends around me. For example, Paul Smith phoned me. I'm not sure if it was every week, but it felt like it was every week, and he'd phone me and say, "Ad, do you want to go for a walk?" And we'd go for a walk, and I'd rant and I'd rave, but he was there as a friend, walking with me through this season of trauma. The other elders were amazing in that they took the load off of my shoulders. I know that they carried an extra load that put them under pressure, but they did it for me, and I'm so grateful for the way that they did that. In addition to that, Lorna and the girls were amazing in a season which must have been incredibly scary for them, seeing me going into free fall. They took the load, they cared for me, they were sensitive to my mood shifts and mood swings. They were just like the best. I also had friends that prayed for me on a regular basis. I know of people in the church and people outside of the church who were praying for me that God would be restoring my life. I guess I share all of this because one of my observations with Christians is that often people can be very reticent to seek out help. They think that if they're quietly in their own worlds will pray, God will solve it. But I want to suggest to you that God often works through people. And my health today came in a large part by this amazing network of people who gathered around me and provided God's care and God's healing to me. And so at the end of this first video, I want to encourage you, if you are facing quietly on your own internal trauma, internal mental illness, you know that life is not as it's meant to be, but you've not asked for help, I want to encourage you, reach out for help. As you gather that team around you, you will find God's solution for how your life can be restored. And friends, it is remarkable what God has done in my life. It's not the same for everybody that you're going to hear through this video, but I'm grateful for the support that God has provided me and the healing and restoration that I've received as I've embraced the best team and their care for me. So I hope you enjoy and are challenged and provoked by watching these videos over this coming week.